So is the Watchtower organization connected with the CIA? Well, this is a very, I think, important subject that needs to be dissected and explained. And I think that it's something that if there is a connection between the Watchtower and the CIA, it needs to be exposed. And I think we need to talk about it because if so, a lot of things make sense. So I have a very special guest to help me dive into this very deep subject. And for those of you who've been watching my last couple of videos about the XJW elites, I did get a hold of John and we connected. We did some other recordings together already that we're going to release soon. So I want to introduce John and John, do you mind just telling my audience real quick um how you actually first came across my channel?
Uh, I only sleep a couple of hours a night, because I'm always working on something, and sometimes the nighttime gives me the best time to work. Uh, but when I wake up in the morning, I usually reach for my laptop and check the news. I like to see what's going on in the world and, see what happened while I was asleep. And I went to YouTube and I was checking something, and in my feed pops my pops up my face. And I you had used my image, my picture as a thumbnail, and that made me want to know who you are and check out your podcasts, and then we connected from there. But that was a great way to get my attention using my face as a thumbnail.
Yeah, and I just want to add to that too that because of the stuff that John has gone through with his communication sometimes being messed with, that when I got a response from John's friend who John sent to contact me, and it was a delayed response, I made it a point to put it in my second video publicly because nobody's going to stop us from talking. It's a universal law. You can't take away people's free will. So no, I'm not playing that game. So I made it very clear, like I am going to connect with John, and no one's going to stop that communication. So I publicized it for a reason, and here it is. We're talking. So we got a lot of things to discuss, but what caught my attention, and this is going to be what this particular video is about, is that when you were on Kim and Mikey's channel, one of the videos that you sent them, I don't remember which part it was, but you said something that caught my attention, and you talked about a possible connection between a Watchtower and the CIA. Now, I remember you kind of put it out there, and you kind of left it like, hey, if Kim and Mikey are interested, like that's something you want to talk to Mikey about. All I can say is if they haven't reached out to you about that, I am, because that's an important subject. So we're going to discuss that deep because I've been saying for the longest time there's no way that the governing body, as we're shown, and I'm not saying this to be rude, but these eight elderly guys who are not even in shape, they don't look like Jesus, they don't look anything special at all, and people believe that these guys are running this brainwashing organization like internationally. They got all these people brainwashed. People are cutting off their family, never speaking to their children again because they question these men. Like, there's no way these eight men are pulling off that level brainwashing. So I always felt that there is something deeper going on. I can't prove it, but I feel like the governing body is just like puppets. Like I feel like they're just the face, and the witnesses think, oh, it's coming from them, from God. But so anyway, going back to the CIA connection, it makes sense because I feel that it's MK Ultra level brainwashing, you know. Um, but let me just get right into it. So I'm going to show this document. Well, first I'm going to go to this website. So anyone can look this up. And let me just ask you, John, because you're the one that brought this to my attention. So what are we looking at right here? What is this order that's being talked about?
That's Executive Order 13526, signed by then President Barack Obama. I think it was 2012, um, when he signed it. But it is an order that basically says in so many words for the plain layman who wants plain language, it says that certain information that the government deems classified or sensitive uh, is not going to be discussed. You can't get a freedom of information request. You can't get anything about anything that's been placed under that order. That's the
Okay,
long and that's the long and the short of it. It's a very lengthy order. If you've read through it, as I'm sure you have, there's a lot of different gobbledygook, but one thing that you want to concentrate on is subsection D, I think it is, uh, that basically says anything that we feel uncomfortable with, we can deem as something classified or sensitive to national security.
okay, yeah. So I honestly didn't read all this because it is so long, and I'm just gonna kind of scroll down so my audience can see like how extensive this stuff is. So
Yeah,
I'm not, yeah, I'm not gonna read through all this,
they
but
did
that,
that. They did that on purpose, so that when you get past page 10 or 12, it's written in legalese.
oh
And
yeah,
from going to court, I know all about legal forms and how lengthy and wordy they are, but they make it that way because so that in the order, what they really want to protect, you're not paying attention to it because you're so sick of reading through pages and pages of legalese language. So, uh, subsection D is what you're looking for. And that's the section that tells anything that they deem sensitive or that they don't want to have to answer to or respond to, it's automatically, national security.
okay. So now with that being said, I'm gonna show another document that you sent me. So somebody had sent in a request based on the Freedom of Information Act, and they wanted to know if the Watchtower was connected with the CIA. So, based on the Freedom of Information Act, this is something that I'm sure multiple people have asked about. So, they wanted to know this question. And now, John, could you explain what the White House response is, or the CIA? I'm not sure if this is directly from the White House or the CIA, but basically it's Washington, D.C. So when
Yeah.
somebody, based on the Freedom of Information Act, wanted to know, hey, is the Watchtower Bible Tract Society connected with the CIA in any way? What is this response that we're looking at back?
The response basically was, and it's a very short response. They said they can neither confirm nor deny if the Watchtower does have or if the CIA does have a relationship with the Watchtower. Now, if they didn't have a relationship with the Watchtower, they would just say no, they have nothing to do with it. But they said they can neither confirm nor deny. And usually, when that answer is given, it's because they're involved and complicit. They just don't want to have to answer, or there's no accountability that's given. So the safe answer is, well, we can neither confirm nor deny. Now, if they weren't involved with the Watchtower, they would just simply say, oh, we're not involved with them. But they gave the standard answer that any government agent would give. They said they can neither confirm nor deny. So what that means is they do have a relationship with the Watchtower. They just don't want to confirm it because they don't want to be accountable for it. They don't want to be held accountable for it. The CIA is not supposed to operate within the United States territorial borders. They lost that charter in, I think, in 1973. So they're not allowed to operate. That's why there's no CIA office anywhere except Washington. Um, but they've managed to get around that by having facilities in other countries, which they call black sites. They don't exist on paper, but we all know that they're there. So it's just a way to get around saying yes or no. And usually, if the government is giving you this type of answer, it's because yes, they are involved with them in some way.
So just to give kind of an elementary example for any XJWs who are not quite understanding it, I'm just going to give a very basic example. So I think when President Trump first got into office, if I'm not mistaken, I might be confused about the timelines, but at one point a while back, I think his first term, if I'm not mistaken, he said he was going to release the JFK documents, the JFK classified files.
Yes.
And right before he was about to do, and this was during his first term, he got stopped. And it was
Yeah.
something like this that was used that like, nope, because of whatever, like, it's a matter of national security or whatever the case was.
Yeah.
And he got blocked at that point.
Yeah.
So it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand that that obviously means that the official story about Lee Lee Harvey Oswald, a lone gunman that acted by himself, is obviously a bunch of crap, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
because we were told the case was closed. This one guy did it, and then he got killed, right? He's dead. So when they have to stop that from being shown, oh, you can't see these documents.
That's
It,
because they're complicit. They're involved in whatever the cover up, whatever the crime, whatever it is, they're complicit. And they don't want to admit that. And that goes back to what I said. They don't want accountability. So, by the same token, you ask, well, is the Watchtower involved with the CIA? We can neither confirm nor deny. And when they say something like that, it's because they're worried about accountability because they're complicit. They're involved in some way. If they weren't involved, they would just say, no, we're not involved with them. Simple.
yeah, and just to add more weight to that, so during Trump's term now, he did release it and he didn't get stopped. And it showed that the official story was a bunch of crap. So just brings further evidence to John's point that they're not going to stop and hide something like that. If it's a no, if they don't have any connection, they don't have any connection.
Yeah.
But so there obviously there's some sort of connection there. So um let me just get into some other CIA type of stuff. So as I mentioned earlier, that I don't think the governing body is there's no way those 8 guys are brainwashing millions of people internationally.
No.
So
They're 12 idiots. They don't have enough brain power to be able to, Svengali somebody. They're being directed and told what to do by people in the shadows, so to speak. But no, they're not running anything. It's very obvious.
yeah, so then think about the level of brainwashing. So many people have compared it and said things like it's like MK Ultra.
Yeah.
Well, just for the record, John, who was behind MK Ultra?
CIA started the MK Ultra program in 19 actually the MK Ultra program is a byproduct of another program that was started. I think it was 53, 1953. Um but yeah, the government was interested in mind control. And that's what you got Manchurian is candidates. I'm sure you heard that term before. People that they were programming to do dirty jobs and then kill themselves. Because they had a lot of blowback and they were losing control in certain areas, operational control in certain areas, and they were losing agents. You go into the lobby of the CIA, there's a wall on the right side and it has all the stars. No names, just stars. And those stars represent CIA agents that died in the middle of operations or on missions or whatever. That's the only recognition that they'll ever get. Um, and that was kind of the thing for them to do. Then someone got the brilliant idea of why can't we program regular people, brainwash them to become our Manchurian candidates? We can use certain things to trigger them, and they'll go off and do the dirty work for us, and we won't have to lose any more agents. And that's what started the program that eventually morphed into the MK Ultra program. Now, supposedly the MK Ultra program was shut down. I can't remember the date. I think it was 74. But, as is the case with the CIA, the project never ended. It just took on a different name. Um, and I think Project Stargate was probably op the controlling operation, and then it splintered off into different areas. There was Project Deep Dream, there was Project Pegasus, there was Project and then MK Ultra was a byproduct, but there was all kinds of different projects. Now, how do I know this? Because SRI, Stanford Research Institute, is less than a mile from my house. And uh, they were getting CIA funding. They're the ones that started pretty much the MK Ultra program. Well, they started a byproduct of the MK Ultra program. But originally SRI, Stanford Research Institute, they were looking for psychics. They were trying to build a next gen psychic soldier. I don't want to go too deep into that, but that's how the MK Ultra program came about. They had funded SRI from the CIA, some black bag money was funneled to the SRI, and that fueled their research for many, many, many years. So MK Ultra was just a byproduct, just to get them in the door, to get them started. But there are several projects, some that are defunct, some that are still going to this day.
So with that being said, do you think it's a stretch to believe that Watchtower could be CIA run with the way that Watchtower is mass brainwashing people?
No, it's not a stretch at all because if you get a hold of a lot of the MK Ultra papers, which they can be found. They're very hard to find. You'll have to dig for them, but if you can find them, they describe many of the techniques that they use to fracture your mind. It's called fracturing your mind, splintering your mind, and creating alters, creating another personality that's programmed to do the bidding of the programmer, whoever's programming. Um, but no, it's not a stretch at all because
Well, let me just cut you off real quick because you said something very important. How you said that it's designed to, how do you say it about like capture the mind and do the bidding of the, can you say that again?
it fractures your mind so that you become a totally different person. It's called splitting your mind, or splintering your mind, because they'll create more than one alter. But the person that's controlling the alter is not you. It's the person who's programming you. So if they program you to wake up one day and get a gun and go shoot up a school, because if you notice, all these guys that shoot the schools up at the end of their mission, they usually kill themselves, or the police say, "We took them down, we caught them." 9 times out of 10, they were dead before the police even entered the school.
Oh yeah, the dead
And
body is placed thereafter, and it's always the same
yeah,
template.
yeah, and
They're dead on
and
location, so they can't defend themselves.
yeah,
But I was gonna say,
yeah. Well, if you're dead, you can't explain anything.
yeah, I was gonna say, let me backtrack because the
Yep.
reason I wanted to zone in on that one point is that doesn't that sound like Watchtower? That you lose your identity, you do the bidding of the person programming you, and so think about this. So a woman who gave natural childbirth, loves her children, and she will cut her own children off and never speak to them again because the governing body said so, because they maybe looked at so-called apostate information. So the governing body says you can't even say a greeting to them. But then
Well,
in 2023 or 2024, they can change and say, well, you know what? The governing body has decided you can now speak to this fellowship people. You can't really be close to them, but you can talk, you can say hello to them. And they say, okay, we can say hello now. So that is an example where someone is completely disown their own soul, their own spirit, and will cut off their own children at the will of these men call themselves the governing body. And just like that, they can change it and they can say, oh, you know what, we decided you can talk to this fellowship people if you want. And they just so when you think about the Jehovah's Witness religion, how you described it, that's exactly what the whole religion is based on. They don't have any identity. They're the governing body's mode. They're told what music to like, what you should find funny, what type of person you should date, what type of work you should do, what how you should spend your weekends, how you should raise your children, what type of jobs you should take. They tell you everything. And then they can just change it just like that. Like for example,
Well,
go ahead.
that's because they're technically speaking the programmers. When you become one of Jehovah's Witnesses, you're splintered. What I was talking about earlier, you've fractured yourself in such a way that they have control. You've given operational control to them. And by extension, the CIA has operational control over the governing body. So if they want to introduce new doctrine or new light, then it's a chain of command. The CIA contacts the governing body, the 12 idiots that call themselves the governing body, and then they say, well, we need to make sure that we have control over them. So introduce new doctrine. And if they accept it, then we know we have first level brainwashing still intact. And your mind is already fractured and splintered. And just because, like I said last time in another video that we did, it hasn't come out yet, but trauma doesn't always hurt. Trauma isn't always pain. Sometimes it's your thought process. That's the trauma. And when they, because being on one of Jehovah's Witnesses is an unusually heavy amount of pressure. I mean, think about it. Statistically speaking, the Jehovah's Witnesses have the highest reported cases of suicide than any other religion. That alone lets me know they're fractured and splintered as if they were MK Ultra, because they're under a form of MK Ultra that the governing body controls. And by extension, the Vatican or Freemasons or the CIA controls the governing body. And that's how they push their doctrine. This new light, that's bullshit. That's just a way to test if somebody is still under control, still under our influence. That's all that is.
Yeah, I mean, of course, part of it also is the fact of when they contradict themselves or have to change, then of course they'll just say do late. Like, but I see what you're saying too. It also at the same time is a due purpose because it also, like you said, it does test the level of brainwashing. It's sort of like
Yeah.
now,
It, it, you,
I was gonna say, sort of like now
it,
with the whole toasting update that they can toast now, people are wondering,
yeah.
are they gonna say birthdays is next? That would be a test
Well,
to see like, are they
they
that?
are
Yeah.
they are gonna, yeah. I predict they're gonna say birthdays are okay. You can smoke now. It's a matter of personal choice. And they're gonna somehow, and I'll tell you how they did it. They're gonna somehow condition people's minds where they will accept Christmas as being okay or a matter of personal conscience. Okay. And the reason that they did that, or that they're gonna do that, is because they came out with a new kingdom song, and everyone that heard it said it sounds like a Christmas carol because they're conditioning your mind for next level programming. And you're conditioned every single day. Make no mistake. You're conditioned to like Burger King over McDonald's. You're conditioned to like rock over classical. You're conditioned your environment does it. Now there's good conditioning and there's bad conditioning. And the advertisers of these products have studied long and hard how to condition you to want to buy their products. The Watchtower does the same thing. They use music, they use that's why they're creating this new media center, and all of a sudden, their movies seem higher quality. They seem more like Hollywood movies, their dramas and their other things that they're depicting. But if you notice, it's the color grading that they use that gets into your mind and conditions you. That's why you look at certain movies, it's color graded a certain way. A
Yeah,
good example of
I was about to
go
say,
ahead.
look, so one of my subscribers had sent me something that her and her husband had discovered that there's a scene where like they have like water, and in the water there's like an eagle and it's connected to the all-seeing eye, and like it's something with the water that they've manipulated the colors to add something subliminal in the water, and it was like at a baptism. So and I think that they're still working on it, so I can put it on my channel. But yeah, like you said, they're messing with the colors, and there's something that they're doing where they can add these subliminal messages in more discreetly, because like the old stuff, like a lot of the stuff I expose on my channel, it's so obvious that when it gets caught, they just got to get rid of the book. Oh, to get rid of the book, to delete the book, get rid of it. But the way they're trying to now put it in, that they're doing it in such a way to have more plausible deniability, so that it'll be a thing where like you look at it and you can't prove it. Like one person may see it, but another person may not see it. So they're getting more clever at ways they can put this stuff in there and not be so obvious. But one thing I don't want to say too is that when I upload this video, John, you're going to see it's interesting because when you were talking about certain things, your camera kept messing up and your sound kept cutting out. And it was right when you started to get deep into some of that CIA stuff that like it really started to mess up.
That's fear. They won't mess with you, but they're afraid of what you're saying. And anytime you have technical glitches like that, because think about it, the Watchtower is now looking for AI programmers. They've actually, in one of the elders' letters that Kimmy read, they're actually looking to recruit AI programmers. Now, the man that created AI, his name was Jordy something. I can't remember. One of the creators of AI. He created the first D-Wave quantum computer, which gave birth to AI. And he himself said, we are contacting spirits and entities and demons. Now, you can find the video on YouTube. Now, if the man that created the computer system that gave birth to AI says it's demonic, these are demons that we're summoning to get information from them, why is the Watchtower using it? See, they shouldn't be using something like that, but that's proof positive that, it's anything but spiritual. And the guy that created AI is saying, you know, well, they're demons, but we want the information that they have, but we can control this. That's a recipe for disaster.
Well, another thing too, and this is just to put in perspective for any Jehovah's Witnesses who may watch this, is if you believe that this is God's organization on earth and a governing body are getting their direction directly from Jehovah, why do they need AI? Jehovah needs AI.
Yeah,
Jehovah,
exactly.
like I thought Jehovah is just giving the governing body the words to say. Holy isn't his Holy Spirit? Holy
Well,
Spirit needs AI.
keep in mind they've already admitted that they're not inspired, that they're not anointed. They're just 12 idiots, nicely dressed suits. That's all they are.
Yeah, the only reason they said that is just to gaslight them. So when they get caught with something, then they can say, well, hey, we're not inspired, But it's like gaslighting because they claim to be inspired, which is why you have to do everything that they say. But then when you catch them in something, oh, well, we're not inspired. We never said that. Like, where did you get that idea from? Well, where do you think they got that idea from? Because you have to do everything that they say, and if you don't do it, they say that you're disobeying Jehovah, right? That's what my
Yeah,
ex-wife said to me. She said I was leaving Jehovah. So they are inspired, but then they put the. I mean, this is just my opinion, but yeah, I think they put that article there to gaslight them because
yeah,
it's like you can't ever beat them if you're a Jehovah's Witness because you catch them doing something wrong. We're not inspired; we're just imperfect men. But then you better do everything we say because we're speaking for Jehovah. And if you disobey us, you're disobeying Jehovah, right? So it's like they get stuck in that
yeah.
loop. but another thing I wanted to touch base on is so we talked a little about MK Ultra, and the connection is clear that the way JWs are brainwashed and the programming and the broadcast and the videos, it's all very, MK Ultra-ish CIA. You know what I'm saying? So, but the video that I first did when I used your footage, the XJW elites harassed and targeted by Watchtower. So we went into well, you did it on your own, and then I connected all the dots. But like we went into the whole thing with the organized harassment and the games and all that stuff. So when asking the question, is Watchtower connected with the CIA? How do you see that, John, is fitting together? Like with the organized harassment, you see my video with the lights and the crazy stuff going on and all the head games. How do these people even play these type of psychological head games that are so cleverly designed that when you try to expose it, you just look paranoid, like they're set up perfectly. Where does that come from? That type of style?
That comes from the CIA. That's you see, it's the Watchtower's job to brainwash you at the first level. See, there's different levels of brainwashing and programming. When you become a Jehovah's Witnesses, that's first level brainwashing. Okay. The longer you're in and the more meetings you make and all that kind of stuff and the literature you look at, you're being subliminally programmed. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie They Live, John Carpenter, is 1983, I think it came out. But if you haven't seen that movie, I suggest you watch it because that's basically what it is. Because you see all kinds of, there's a scene where he's on a main boulevard and you see all kinds of buildings and you see billboards advertising copper tone and suntan lotion and whatever else. But when he put these certain glasses on, then he could see that the billboards were telling people, obey, do what you're told, produce babies, be a consumer. And there's subliminal messages that maybe your eye sees more than what you know. And you can look at a picture and see a picture, but your inner eye, your subconscious, registers the message that's hidden in the picture. And you don't think it at the time, you don't acknowledge it at the time, but then your brain starts, turning that over in your head, and then that's subtle programming right there. And that's what the Watchtower does with its images. Um, every week you're going to meetings, and then they use certain code words like apostate, which if you say apostate, that terrifies the average Jehovah's Witness because they have been programmed to be afraid of being labeled an apostate. That's your first level programming right there. Or if they say, "Ooh, he's an enemy of Jehovah," then you automatically recoil and think, "Oh my God, I don't want anything to do with this person." And this person could have been your best friend a few minutes before. It's all programming. And they're not smart enough to come up with this. Like I said, they're idiots. The governing body are idiots. Yeah, I said it. They're idiots. Um, it's who's behind them. It's CIA, Vatican, Freemasonry, could be the cabal, whatever, or all of them together. But you have to ask yourself, are these simple 12 men, these simpletons, are they really that smart to program you? No. I guarantee you somebody on their writing committee is worked for the government. Maybe not the CIA, it could be the DDI or some other intelligence agency, but someone on their writing staff, and if not the art staff, the artwork, the people that do the artwork, someone works for the government. I guarantee you, if you went through the personnel, someone is an ex-government worker or was a government worker or whatever.
Yeah, so going back to the organized harassment, all that stuff, could you tell my audience the story about that woman you were dating, like who she was and what she did and what you
Okay.
uncovered by accident?
Yeah. Her name was Patty. She lived in Vancouver, Canada. Um, we dated for a couple of years. Um, and one day she was visiting here in California, and she always kept her phone locked. I mean, when she put it down, it was locked. But this one particular time, she set the phone down, and it she forgot to lock it. It automatically has a lockout screen. When the screen goes black, it automatically locks. Um, but I happened to pick it up. I don't know what I touched because it's touch screen. I don't know what I touched or what I hit, but the normal Android desktop or what you'd see with all the apps, that was gone. The screen went black, and then it was like a totally different desktop, a totally different system, operating system, whatever it was. But I noticed that there are all kinds of folders, and some of them had my name on it, and some of them had the names of places that we had been on dates or whatever. Um, and I was like, "Whoa, what's this?" And I clicked on several items, and going through the phone, and then I realized she was keeping very meticulous notes on everything I did. And this was during the period of time that we were going to court. So what I know now, what I didn't know then is, the Watchtower had sent her as a Trojan horse to get inside information from me, what we were doing, what our court strategy was going to be, certain evidence that we were going to produce. And then when I realized this, I thought, oh my God, you know, and that's when I kind of coined the phrase Watchtower whores. These are women who will do whatever they're told to do because they know they're doing it for the good of the organization. You know, um, you know, and I'm not going to worry about being disfellowshipped because the brothers told me to do it. But I had gotten into some of her files, and she has stuff like what I had for lunch, people that I ran into. We were out a couple of times and, ran into old friends or something like that. She had that written down. She was these were the most detailed, meticulous notes I had ever seen. And I kept thinking, what I had a mental disconnect because I was thinking, she's not one of Jehovah's Witnesses. What the hell? And that's when I found out, doing a little digging and going down a few rabbit holes, that she was an Eastern Star. Her mother was an Eastern Star, and that's the
Okay,
female.
I was gonna say,
Female,
yeah, can you explain what that is?
yeah, Eastern Star. The Order of the Eastern Star are female Freemasons. Her mother was very high up in the Freemason echelon, and I guess she was gonna join the Freemasons or the Eastern Stars or whatever. But because they have to go through an initiation process, and she has to complete a quote unquote mission to get full admission into the organization. And I was the mission. Um, and when I realized that the Watchtower had a very, very close alliance with Freemasonry, that changed everything because then it explained more how they were able to get things done. And because I was stunned because I was thinking the Watchtower only deals with witnesses, but they don't. They deal with other people so that when they do something, you know, they use a third party so that they look like this all goes back to plausible deniability. If something happens to you, oh, we didn't do anything to you. You had bad luck, but really it was they were using their Freemason contacts. For example, when we found out that the judge's signature was forged, and that the clerk did it, I kept wondering, why would the clerk do that? Was she paid off? No, she wasn't paid off. What we found out later was she was a Freemason. She was a part of the Order of the Eastern Star, the Divine Nine, and all the rest of that bullshit. But that's why she did it. She was told to do it. She didn't have a problem doing it, and she did it. That's the thing about the Eastern Stars. Um, they're all women. So, you kind of have to be careful because, you think this is a nice girl I've met at the bar or at the club or whatever, but you never know. It could be the Watchtower sending her, torpedoing her so that, you're her mission. You know, she's doing a job and you're the job. And, it was just, you know, and anyway, to go on, I confronted her about what I found, and then she tried to gaslight me. Oh, there's nothing like that in my phone. You're going crazy. You're under stress. And not long after that, we quit dating. We kept wondering, how did the Watchtower lawyer know a lot of our strategy? And what I know now in hindsight is she was telling them. And, that's the kind of tricks that the Watchtower resorts to. And they use third parties so that, they have plausible deniability. For example, I'll give you another example. We had to subpoena some bank records from Wells Fargo Bank for the court case. And one of the men that was named in the lawsuit, his name is Luis Contreras.
Wait, let me just cut you off real quick. Could you just tell my audience what you're referring to so they can watch it? That's what you discussed on Kim and Mikey's channel, right? What you're getting into now?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah. So,
It,
for
it's
those who haven't watched his videos, you can go to Kim and Mikey's channel and watch his 3 videos, and you'll have a better understanding on all the legal stuff he's getting into. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll put it in a nutshell. We filed a lawsuit against the Watchtower under the RICO statutes. It was the first criminal case that was ever filed against the Watchtower in history. Um, we were a week away from jury selection, and then all of a sudden the case was dismissed. Then we found out that the clerk uh, forged the judge's signature, and that's how they got the case out of court. And we've been fighting about it ever since for the last 15 years. Um, but I can't remember what I was saying now. But that's where all this started from. Um,
Well,
the
you were basically really getting to the Eastern Star thing, and that they basically how they use third parties, and
Yeah, yeah,
you were set your way. Yeah.
yeah. But it so Luis Contreras was one of the people named in the lawsuit. Um, he was one of the men that tried to take over the Kingdom Hall in the hostile takeover, as Vern put it, in Canada. Hi, Vern. Um, his son was the manager of Wells Fargo, where they were where there were a lot of fraudulent transactions happening. And when we filed the subpoena and submitted it to Wells Fargo, they fought tooth and nail to keep us from these documents. Now, Luis Contreras' son is not one of Jehovah's Witnesses. He's not, but he was loyal to the Watchtower. And if the Watchtower said, don't give him these documents, he was willing to be fired, just short of being fired, than to keep, to give up the documents. It's really deep and it's really complicated, but I'm glad all this is coming out now. And more to come. But that's how they operate. They compromise people in all walks of life who aren't Jehovah's Witnesses per se, but they all have a connection. Somehow, some way, there's a thread that ties them all together, and it's, you know, the Watchtower, or in some cases, Freemasonry. And the Watchtower has been denying for so many years that they're Freemasons, and we're not this, we're not that. But then you watch a lot of the videos and you notice the Freemason pinky ring that Let wears, and you notice, several other Freemason stuff, that floating about. But that's how they get things done because they need people in carefully placed positions of authority who can get away with stuff. And that's how, and they need people in these positions to do their bidding. And that's how they get it done. Um, it's I probably shouldn't say this. It's kind of fascinating how they've been able to pull it off because they have Jehovah's Witnesses over here, and then for everything that the Jehovah's Witnesses don't have access to, there's always Freemasonry. There's a sheriff in the local town that I live in. I won't say his name. He's dead now. I won't say his name, but he was the head sheriff, and he's also one of Jehovah's Witnesses. And that's how they get things done. So when you file complaints, or it could be anything as simple as a parking ticket. If they want to mess with you, they can mess with you because they have foot soldiers that are Freemasons, foot soldiers that aren't witnesses but are affiliated with witnesses, and then they have the Jehovah's Witnesses. So they have a pool of three different pools to choose from to get their dirty work done. And that's how they operate. And that when I discovered this, when I looked at it, then I realized this is an unholy alliance. The Watchtower and Scientology are the only religions that I know that you just can't leave. If you can be Catholic and leave, no problem. You can be a Mormon and leave, no problem. You can be a Seventh-day Adventist and leave, no problem. But if you're one of Jehovah's Witnesses, they have this mafia-like mentality where once you're in, you're always in, and we own your ass. And when I realized that, I thought something is deeper going on here, you know. But there again, I'm a conspiracy theorist. That's, what people have called me. But I do the research. I want to know. I want answers. I don't want their answers. I want the answer. I don't want their version of the truth. I want the truth. And, everything has to come from them. These lofty 12 idiots, it has to come from us. That's why I said they're punks in nice suits. That's all they are.
Let me touch on something you said about how they have this mafia mindset, like they own you. So, on a side subject, I just want to recommend this to anybody who's left this organization. Whether you believe in spiritual laws or not, whether you believe in demonic stuff or not, the important thing to understand is when you're dealing with people who do, you have to understand this is what they believe. They believe in these sort of type of things, even if you don't. So the reason I
Yeah.
mention that is because when I left the organization, I understood that when I got baptized, in a sense, I got baptized to the governing body, the organization. And I decided to write a disassociation letter, making it clear I am breaking that contract. I am disassociating. I'm canceling any sort of contract these people think I had with them. Now, again, whether you believe this demonic spiritual ruler or not, the point is they do. So for XJWs that just fade away, they believe they still own you, and they may even still be counting you when they count their numbers of how many publishers they have, even if you're inactive. So I just want to recommend on a spiritual level, I literally
Because
recommend, it doesn't matter how long you've been gone, that you should actually write a letter making it clear that you are cutting off that contract. Because if you don't do that, they are still going to think they own you. And if you believe in the whole uh, demonic element, satanic element of Watchtower, if you believe those spirits are real, then you could still actually have some sort of a contract with these evil spirits if you don't actually break that contract. So write a letter. It doesn't matter if you've been gone 15 years already. Don't just, it's not for them, it's for you. So I would write a letter and make it clear. And don't let them disfellowship you. You write it before they disfellowship you. But I just wanted to recommend that. And there's one more thing, John, I want to touch on is I want to show you this picture. And just give me your honest opinion. This is the CIA headquarters, and
Oh, yeah.
they might have moved it somewhere to another building. I'm not sure, but it doesn't really matter if they have more than one building or they moved it.
No,
But
they
this
didn't.
was okay, but this is the one that I got online. So
Yeah. That's in the lobby of the CIA.
yeah. So I want you to go first. Just what do you see anything that just kind of like stands out as like you get an eerie feeling from this?
Let me look a bit closer as if I really have to do that. But um the first off, let me preface this by saying within the government, every logo has a connection to something spiritual. Now, I say spiritual, it could be good or bad, but the first thing I notice about this is the star. Um, and I I've always been uncomfortable with that because there again, like I said, um, if you're a CIA agent and you happen to meet your demise while on some kind of assignment, all you get is a star on the wall. Not your name. It doesn't say this is dedicated to this person. You just get a star. And there are many stars on the left wall when you first come in. But that's the first thing I noticed. And there's the eagle, but notice the eagle is turned sideways so that you only see one eye. And the significance of that is uh, any- anything with the eagle on it goes back to the Illuminati. So what the symbolism is we serve the public. That's our public facade, but we're really a part of the Illuminati, and we're really the power behind the power, so to speak. And that's what the CIA has always been. Um, they truly run the country. Well, they did run the country. And that's what got JFK killed. He was going to write an executive order. It was executive order 11110. And he was going to disband the CIA, and that's what got him killed. And Trump was going to disband the CIA too. And you were talking about they didn't want to release the JFK files. How that came about is Trump told them off the record, I can either write an executive order that destroys you, or you will let me have these files and access to anything else I want. Trump has really reigned, love him or hate him, he's reined in the CIA quite a bit. He does not like the CIA. I won't go into why or the bad blood between them. He does not like the CIA and he does not like the FBI, two of the most dangerous agencies in the well, I don't want to say in the world. Well, I guess yeah, two of the most dangerous agencies in the world. Because of their reach and because they do stuff and everything is hidden behind executive orders and secret this and secret that and eyes only this and I you got to be read in and you got to be on this level of security clearance, it's all to cover their asses. But the CIA has always tried to be the power behind the power. That's their mistake, trying to control too much, but yeah, I've always been uncomfortable with this logo, the CIA logo, but
So
that,
I was gonna say let me go back to the bird. So the the XJW couple that sent me some information when I mentioned how they had it was a picture of a baptism and the way that they did something with the water and the lighting, it was like it might even been the same type of bird. It might have been an eagle. And it was and I think you could only see one eye too, but I'm just starting to think it might have been the same logo because I'm like, why are they putting a bird in the water subliminally like that? And it might have been that same bird, perhaps. I'm sure when they see this, I'll get a message about it, and they can give me. I don't know if they're still working on it, but that would be interesting because they showed me that it was a JW video, and it was like a video of somebody getting baptized, and there was a subliminal bird in the water, and they did it in a very clever way where it's very hard to notice.
Yeah.
So another thing that that I'm just wondering, like, you see black and white checker floor. I'm not saying every black and white checker floor is a problem, but what again, when you're talking about patterns and symbols, I don't
That
think it's a coincidence you got a black and white checkerboard
no,
either.
no, that's in
But
a
well, I was going to say too, and the pillars. Even though
yeah.
this picture is just showing the sill, you can see if you look at the top of this picture, you got these pillars too. So you got the
Okay.
pillars and you
So
got the black and white.
the black and white floor symbolizes the Illuminati. Um, and that symbolizes duality, that there has to be a balance between black and white, light and dark. And as we know, the CIA is very into dark things. The pillars represent. Notice that the white and black floor is it's on the floor, and the symbolism for that is they're the base that everything is built on. And then you see the pillars. So what the symbolism is you can build nothing and do nothing unless we are the base. And duality is very big with these people. And like you said, you made a very, very good point. Um, you don't have to believe it, but they do. And it's always best to know what your enemy believes because he operates and moves based on his beliefs. So, the duality is there must be light and dark. They can coexist together. And that's what they're saying. Whenever you see a checker floor, you know, in a movie and in the Matrix, that scene where that deja vu scene where this cat walks by twice, you're paying attention to the cat, but you're not looking at the floor. As the floor is checkered. And what that symbolizes is that we are the base that everything is built on, and nothing can be built without us. And the only other people on this planet that have that philosophy is Freemasonry. What you're looking at is Freemason symbols on the floor. The pillars, they're both white and black, white on one side and black on the other. This is all symbolism. That's all it is. They're telling you up front what they're about, but most people don't see that. They just see, oh, well, it's the CIA logo and it's intelligence agency in the world and blah, 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 blah. But when you break it down symbol for symbol, and if you understand something about esoteric and occult knowledge, and I have a teeny tiny bit of occult knowledge because I've had to develop this occult knowledge so that I would know what my enemies were doing and be able to combat them and meet them on a level playing field. But yeah, that's what all that's about. Um, and if you've been in Washington D.C., there's a running joke in Washington D.C. that it's the devil's town, and that's because if you were to look at Washington D.C. from an aerial view, you would see the streets are in such a way that they make up the pentagram. And that's why it's called the Devil's Town. It's kind of a joke with all of them, um, politicians and even the people that live there. You know, they joke about it, but yeah, the streets are shaped in such a way and run in such a way that it makes a five-star pentagram.
Yeah, and one more thing I want to mention too is that for people who have a hard time understanding when people are like harassed and targeted in such a way, say, well, how do they have money to waste their time following a person 24/7 and all this stuff? Well, if you go back to the Patriot Act that was passed after 9/11, it was set up where they have a system where basically they can target any person that they want and just make up a reason, and it's under the guise of anti-terrorism. So that's where the funding comes in. So you have these networks like the CIA, the FBI, and all they have to do is like for example, they'll tell your neighbors and people around you that you're some sort of criminal under investigation, and and that's all they got to do. And I want to make this clear because I'm not going to keep talking about this subject on my channel. So I want to kind of say this once and for all that things like deep fake, understand that they always say the government is like 50 to 80 years ahead of what we have. So this whole deep fake stuff that you're seeing now, you can't tell the difference. They've been had the ability to doctor up fake videos and all types of stuff. So that's kind of like where these agencies come involved is anyone who they feel they want to target and harass. And this is where like if Watchtower is in the same network, they can call there because they're all connected, right? They can say, "Hey, we want you to target this person." That's what they do. They'll make up fake stuff. They will go into your neighborhoods. They'll go to and they'll just tell people, "Hey, he's
Yeah,
this, he's that." And this is where a lot of people that are targeted will feel like, even like neighbors and people are giving them weird looks and acting weird around them because that's all they have to do. They do it under the guise of the whole anti-terrorism thing based on the Patriot Act, which allows them to spend money targeting people and they get paid for it because it's in their budget.
yeah,
So I just want to say that like there's a lot of deep stuff going on, but just remember that deep fake and all that stuff, they've been had that stuff. And they've been could use it on anyone who they want to try to destroy.
yeah,
Um but I also want to say this too, because I want to be transparent and say that I understand that like when this stuff first happened to me and I went through all this stuff, I went through a phase of believing all the FBI is corrupt, all the CIA is corrupt, they're all corrupted. And I realized that, and going back to the Masonic checkerboard of the duality, there is good and evil even in these agencies. And I hate to say it, but like the people who are trying to attack you, they want you to focus on the bad. So they want to convince you that they're all evil and they're all against you, so just give up. But there are white hats. There are people in the FBI who think that they're really trying to do a good job, that they're not corrupt. There are people in the CIA that do, and this is why sometimes high-profile whistleblowers get targeted themselves because sometimes those are people in these agencies that say that find out the whole picture and they don't want no part of it. And sometimes they get attacked. So I just want to say that like and another way for XJWs to put this in perspective is just like the Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses. Yeah, there's human trafficking, there's child trafficking, there's corruption, there's evil, there's all this stuff. But we all know plenty of elders who really were good guys. They're brainwashed, but they're in the network. They believed they're serving Jehovah. They believe they're doing right. They're really trying to help. I have dealt with elders who really had my best interest in mind or thought they did. And when I was a ministerial servant, I was at one point trying to become an elder, and that's the type of elder I would have been. I would have just been brainwashed into the system, trying to do right. So there are plenty of people in the FBI and even in the CIA that they join these organizations because they do want to do good. So, but what you're dealing with is that duality and that darkness. It's just like the government, right?
yeah,
Not every government official is evil, but some of them are the most evil people in the world in the government. But that they're not all like that. And that's why sometimes there's such a battle and the war sometimes in politics. So I just want to say that because um I just don't want I don't want my audience to think that like or to walk away from this thinking like they're all evil and they're just nothing but bad guys because that's what the bad guys want. They want you to focus and to think that they're running everything and that we have no hope in there, but that's not true. And that's one reason too why they operate in a darkness because they have to operate in a darkness is because they know even their what's the word like their co-workers. That's not the word I was looking for, but they know that the people who work with them, some of them are good
they're
and
colleagues. They're colleagues.
colleague, that's what it was. Yeah. So that's why it is done in such a dark way because they are hiding. They're hiding because there's light people, there's people in the light of those agencies, just like politics and just like the congregation. But what we're doing is we're exposing the darkness and
Yeah.
putting it and putting light on it. So for anybody watching this video, especially if you're in the CIA and you're watching my video, because I'm sure they're watching some of my stuff sometimes, look within, right? Because there's so much evil and darkness that's hiding in these organizations. Um, Same thing with the FBI. They're not all corrupt, but you 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 got to really look at situations and know what the hell is going on. For those that think maybe it's kind of a stretch to say that is the CIA in connection with the Watchtower, well, that would explain why it seems that they're being protected, right? Because, like, let me just put it like this: everybody's making a big deal about Jeffrey Epstein, and I'm not saying that it's not a big deal because it is a big deal, but Epstein is one guy, right? I don't believe that one guy by himself is responsible for everything that they're saying. I think that he was part of a system. And now that he's supposedly dead, don't even be so sure that he really is, but that he supposedly committed suicide in prison. But it's easy for the other people that are involved in his operation to put it all on him, to be like, okay, it was him, and now he's gone, and let's move on. Where he was just part of a big operation.
Yeah.
So I think, and this is just my opinion, but I think that the Watchtower organization got something bigger than Epstein because they are $1 billion organization that's international, right? They're bigger than Epstein. People just
Yeah.
don't know it. So anyway, when I have to ask the question on why are they being protected? Now, everybody knows that, like, the FBI is, watching everybody, and or they're cyber tracking everybody. They're, like, you have to be careful what words you type in your computer and all this stuff. Well, if I can see these subliminal pedal images, you tell me the FBI doesn't see this?
Yeah.
You tell me that they don't see this? Well, the fact that I have been watched and harassed for a while, I know they've seen it because I know they've seen me expose it. So I know they know about it. Don't think that I'm seeing all of this stuff, and the FBI. So the question is, what are they waiting for? Why are they not acting on that? Why does it seem like Watchtower is just like they're being protected by some powerful agency? Well, according to that law that Obama passed and that being used to stop people from asking the question on, is the Watchtower connected with the CIA? Well, if they are connected with the CIA, then that would explain why they're still operational. Like why they're untouchable. And I just want to quote somebody too. So Bo Benson, who also has a YouTube channel, he's also one that's not afraid to go into these dark areas. He said before during an interview, I don't remember what video it was, but he specifically said that he got, I think, an investigator or somebody to start to really push the Watchtower about the sexual child abuse. And he ran into a roadblock where somebody told him, back off. Like, basically, they're untouchable, like, back off. So there does seem to be some sort of protection that's protecting these people. Well, so when you look at that, I don't think it's a stretch for anyone thinking that they may
Well,
be connected with the CIA because you got the brainwashing, you got the MK Ultra level brainwashing, you got the behavior, you got the tactics, you got the fact of, if you try to have this freedom of information on whether or not there's a connection, they're going to reject it and say we can't confirm or deny. So, and then we see somebody's protecting them. So I don't know. They just very well may be part of the CIA.
I remember watching a video, I think his name is Marcus Vaughn, and in one particular one of his early videos, it's old now. He when he was at Bethel, he said he took an elevator down to the basement or something, and he pushed the wrong button, and the elevator let him off in an area that he had never been in and that he didn't even know existed. And he said it was very quiet, spooky quiet. And he said that that's when he first saw uh he said I think he described it as he opened up a door because he heard noise and he saw basically a seance going on. And he immediately left, backed his way out into the hallway and got back on the elevator. But that was kind of the beginning of him waking up and knowing that there's something evil and sinister at Bethel. And that was years ago that I saw that video. I don't know if he still has that video now, but and I got the feeling that he was going to tell more, but that he didn't want to tell more because people wouldn't be they would jump all over him. They wouldn't have believed it. Like I've had to sit on many secrets for the last 15 years since court because I knew no one is ready for this. No one is ready for me to divulge all these secrets because if I do, they'll call me conspiracy theorist. They'll be trying to throw me in a straitjacket and have me committed. And I had to wait until certain things happen, like AI and other things, until the average person's mind could accept what I have to say. And that's kind of where I've been. It's kind of like I'm sitting on this secret about the Watchtower, and it's a secret that can destroy them. And I'm just waiting for people to catch up to where I am so that they'll be able to accept when I divulge this secret. And the Watchtower knows that I have various information and they're terrified because they know he's gonna tell it. And I am. I'm gonna tell it. But I just want to wait until people are more conditioned and open-minded so that because when I do reveal the secret, the first the first thing the person's mind will do is rail against it. No, 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 that's not possible. No, no. And then when they think about it, they'll think, oh, I hate that guy. But then when they think about it, it's the only thing that makes sense. And then all of a sudden, the dots will connect and it will fall into place. And that's the reason why I guess I came out in the open. I was going to keep all this to myself and keep moving forward and not worry about anything because I figured it will be light years before the public is ready to accept what I have to say. Um, and now, with the advent of the 21st century and AI and all this other stuff and high technology and quantum computing and whatever else, now I know people are going to be ready for me to tell what I have to tell, very soon. And, because part of it is I can tell you exactly why they allow pedophilia. I can tell you why certain children are sexually abused or sorry, uh, who deal with certain sexual molestation, um, and others in the same family are not. I can tell you why they rely on women to do their dirty work. And I can explain all this and more. And I can tell you how it connects to Jeffrey Epstein. And when I discovered this, I think I threw up for 20 minutes and I just couldn't believe it was that traumatic for me. And I know if it was kind of traumatic for me, because I'm a guy who's been through some shit. I'll be the first to admit that. If it was traumatic for me, I know other people are going to have a hard time accepting this because this targeting thing, there's a reason why. They target people for one of three reasons. Either you know something, you've seen something, or they just want to mess with you. And they mess with a lot of people. It's kind of like the when I saw Jack Reacher, the movie Jack Reacher, there was a scene where a sniper shot 8 people. And he did that because he was really after one, but he shot 8 people. And he was trying to make it appear as if it's a mass shooter, but he was really after one guy. And that's kind of how it is. They target a bunch of people, and then somebody says, "I'm being targeted." Oh, shut up! You're paranoid. Nobody's after you because they're really trying to cover up the group that they are targeting.
So now me and John are going to watch the Selena Veroma interview that was removed from YouTube. So some of you may remember seeing this exclusive interview with her and Jimmy Bell. that was posted maybe about 2 years ago, maybe, or a year and a half ago. And he had his own reasons for removing it. It's none of my business, but I had basically asked him if I could repost it, and he sent it to me and gave me permission to repost it. So me and John are going to now watch this interview, and we're going to break it down and show the similarities on our situations and what she's saying and how everything connects.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Big Picture. This is episode number 15, and we have a very, very special episode this evening or day, wherever you're watching this at. I have had the opportunity, and very thankful for it, to have an interview with Miss Selena Veroma. She actually came on the scene, it seems like just like a month or two ago, with her video where she went down to Lumberton to visit Anthony Morris. And that video, that TikTok, apparently set the XJW community on fire. However, what a lot of people don't know is she just didn't pop up on the scene. This is stuff that she's been working on for a while. And I know that the community has had a lot of questions. And so we're going to have a conversation. We're going to ask some of the questions. I did pull some questions from the viewers in your comments. And we're going to just have a conversation, like I said. Now, I'm going to go ahead and preface this with this is her journey. And she is sharing it with us out of the kindness of her heart. And basically wanting the folks to know that what you're seeing in the news, what you're hearing about Watchtower, this stuff is real. And a lot of people don't want to accept that. So hopefully this interview will open your mind a little bit and you'll be willing to dig on the information. So without further ado, hi, Selena.
Hi, Jimmy.
How are you doing?
Very good. How are you?